Good evening, everyone. It is Tuesday, October 3rd. This is the joint meeting between the Public Works and Recreation, Parks and Cultural Affairs Committee. I would like to call this meeting to order at 6:36. First item on the agenda is roll call. I will first call the roll of the Public Works Committee, and then Ms. Young will call the roll call of the Recreation and Parks Committee. Tonight for Public Works, we have Jim Frayer, Brian Meek, Nora Najelski-Eichner, Darlene Young, and myself, Barbara Smith.
Thank you, Barbara. We have for Recreation and Parks, we have Nicole Ayers, Josh Goldstein, Brian Meek, Miss Jen McMurr, and myself, right? Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, first item on the agenda is public input. Is there anyone who is online? I see we have one person in attendance. If you would like to speak, please raise your hand digitally. Okay, it appears not. So I will go ahead and close public input and move on to new business. The first item on the agenda is item 1, approve the minutes of the Public Works Committee meeting of Tuesday, September 5th, 2023. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Okay, Mr. Frayer moves that. So are there any from the Public Works Committee? Are there any additions, changes, deletions? Nope. Okay, seeing none, I will call a vote of the Public Works Committee. All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I believe that's all of us. Any opposed or abstentions? Okay, so those minutes pass unanimously. And then the next item on the agenda, approve the minutes of the Public Works and Recreation, Parks and Cultural Affairs Committee special joint meeting of Tuesday, September 19th, 2023. Do I have a motion, please? Okay, Ms. Ayers. Ms. Ayers makes the motion. Are there any changes, additions, deletions to that? There's not much to the minutes. It was an executive session. Okay, seeing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. Okay. I'm going to do my best to call out for Monique here. We have Jen McMurr, Nora Najelski-Eichner, myself, Mr. Frayer, looks like Mr. Goldstein, and whom I met, Ms. Young, and Ms. Ayers. Did I get everyone?
Yeah.
Okay. Any opposed or abstentions?
Abstain.
Okay. Mr. Meek abstains. Okay. So that passes. And now moving on to item 3, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute the CPB Row and Road Reconstruction Agreement, Deed Clarification Agreement, and Declaration of Restricted Covenant between the City of Norwalk and Gardella Brothers Limited Liability Company per the Memorandum of Assistant Corporation Counsel Darren Callahan, dated September 28th, 2023. Do I have a motion, please? Okay, Ms. Ayers makes that motion. Thank you, Nikki. Okay, so I am going to turn this over to our attorneys. This is an item that has been discussed for many years among the Recreation and Parks and Public Works committees. And we seem that we have come to some very good information and agreement. So I'm going to turn it over to Mario. Am I turning it to you?
Sure, well, quickly,
Okay.
and then briefly, and then
Okay.
Darren Callahan, Assistant Corporation Counsel, will take over the presentation. I'll be very brief. It's been, I think, over 6 years that since the Gardellas, with their initial counsel, which was, I think, 4 or 5 lawyers ago, initially approached us with regard to their requests for changes to the land rights that they have with regard to some of the city's property, in particular ingress egress to their property, for ingress and egress to their property. And to make a long story short, it's been many years and a lot of work. And there's been many different professionals involved. I think they've had, again, 4 or 5 different counsel. And, you know, I want to give a lot of credit to their current counsel, both Attorney Cafaro and Attorney Suchi, because their approach was to listen to what some of the concerns the city had, where there was some disagreement in the negotiations, and we also listened to them as well, and we worked collaboratively together to address, you know, everyone's concerns about some of the outstanding issues, and I really do believe that we've come to a point where we have a document that resolves all the city's concerns about their initial proposal for this work, and I think it does a few things. One, it clarifies the title, and there's been, I think the title hasn't been clear as to, you know, the restrictions that are there, and what the actual use has been of the city's beachfront park for 100 years. So I think it cleans up, you know, title issues that have been ongoing for many years, and it obviously improves access there, the street there, and I think will allow for the city to further improve that park, and also enable the Gardellas to make improvements at some point in the future to their property. So I think it's a win-win for everybody, and I want to thank all those involved, particularly Assistant Corporation Counsel Darren Callahan, who spent a tremendous amount of time over the last few years in you know, changing all the documents and working with title counsel to help us to help guide everybody to I think a product that is something that is really beneficial to both parties. And I'll let Darren actually, before we get too far ahead of ourselves, Barbara, at some point, did you want to have the owners council, do you want to give them just a few minutes?
Sure, I think that that's the right thing to do.
Maybe, yeah, because I think what's going to happen is that Attorney Callahan is going to go through a presentation walking everybody through the proposed agreement. And my understanding is that the Gardellas Council wanted to just take a few minutes to say a few things. And I think we had agreed that probably the best way to approach is to let Attorney Callahan walk everybody through the document. So maybe it's a good time for him to, I see their counsel, Attorney Cafaro's on. I don't know if Attorney Suchi's on.
Thank you, Mario. Madam Chair, is it okay if I proceed?
Yes, please. And I want to just start by thanking you for your work getting us to this point, Mr. Cafaro. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you all, first of all, for meeting in joint session. And I know that a lot of this time frame has been expedited. And I too would like to thank Corporation Counsel Coppola and Assistant Corporation Counsel Callahan. These two gentlemen worked very, very hard to bring us to this point, along with myself and my co-counsel Elizabeth Suchi, who unfortunately is not able to be here. We have joining us as well Mr. Richard Taylor, who is a member of the Gardella Limited Partnership, who is with us here as representing the Gardella family. As Mario indicated, it's been a long time coming. It's been over 6 years that this issue between the Gardella family and the city of Norwalk has gone back and forth. And if I may, if you'll indulge me just a second, the Gardella family, many of you, I'm sure, know in many cases they're synonymous with Norwalk, and certainly synonymous with the development and the history of the waterfront here in Norwalk, Half Pasture Beach, Cove Marina, Rex Marina, Ascension Beach back in the day, Skipper's Restaurant. The list goes on and on and on, and they continue to be a part of the vibrant community that is East Norwalk and the beachfront. They were looking for all these years to better develop the land that they own. And in order to do that, they needed to reach understandings with the city to allow ingress and egress to their properties. And also the city needed some clarity with regard to what their rights and responsibilities are with regard to the beachfront and the development of and use of Calf Pasture Beach. And a lot of the existing language dated back to 1922, and some of it was antiquated and needed to be updated. As I once said to my clients, you know, the world changes, society changes. Who heard 40 years ago of something called a skate park? Who heard 10 years ago of a thing called pickleball? Things change, and the city wants the flexibility to adapt to those changes to best serve the community. The Gardellas, on the other hand, take very serious sort of their deal, if you will, back in 1922 to make sure that the city maintains Calf Pasture Beach as a park, as we know, a park for the recreation and bathing and enjoyment of the public, and all uses that are commensurate and go along with that. And that basically was the back and forth for all these years. Unfortunately, some misunderstandings. And we were able in the past year, with new council and a new approach and new leadership in the Gardella family, to sort of take fresh eyes on this and move forward in a rapid manner. And what is before you, as Attorney Coppola said, is truly a win-win for, yes, the Gardella family, yes, the city of Norwalk, but most importantly, the people of Norwalk. The precious resource that we have will do nothing but get better under this agreement. It's protected from uses that would not be in keeping with a park and in a beachfront community. It's going to be a win-win. Finally, I want to say that my hat is off to, again, Mario Coppola and Darren Callahan. These gentlemen served this city and its citizens well in this negotiation. They were tough, they were fair, they were reasonable and respectful. They always had the city's best interests in mind. And it was wonderful to deal with such great professionals to reach this point. And I want to commend my clients, the Gardella family, for their willingness to listen, to compromise, to, you know, stand their ground when needed, etc. All of those efforts result in us being here today to present to you jointly, both sides, and request of you your affirmative vote and send this agreement on to the full council to authorize the mayor for signature. So again, thank you all for all of your efforts. Thank you for being here tonight and taking the time to listen to this. Again, big thanks to Attorney Coppola and Attorney Callahan for all of their efforts. And thank you to the Gardella family for all they've done in the past and what we hope they will accomplish in the future. Again, always having the best interests of Norwalk in mind. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Attorney Cofaro. Darren, you want to go ahead and?
Sure. Thank you. Can everyone hear me all right? Good, great. So just briefly, I want to get right into it, but I do want to echo all the compliments Attorney Coppola had for the Gardella team and the Gardellas. It was a real pleasure to work with Attorney Cofaro and Attorney Succi and get this to a resolution. So just jumping right in, Calf Pasture Beach is a 33.7 acre parcel of land, which we all know and enjoy and love. But what many probably don't know is it was a parcel of land that was acquired by the city via effectively a gift or donation by the successor title holders of the Gardella family in 1922, so over 100 years ago. And the legal issues that the city and the Gardella family have grappled with are some of the rights and reservations that are in that deed, that were reserved in that deed. Specifically, there was a reservation of a right-of-way over the westerly and northerly portions of Calf Pasture Beach in favor of the abutting parcels, which are owned by the Gardella family. Those being addresses 0, 48, 50, and 62 Calf Pasture Beach Road. And there were also various general and then very specific, detailed restrictions that could be imposed over Calf Pasture Beach, the uses of it. The problem with much of this is the manner in which the two properties were utilized over the years. In really more importantly, the manner in which they were defined without any specificity regarding scope, including geographical location or footprint, and effectively outdated in form, particularly with respect to the restrictions. So all that being said, what was necessary was to effectively clarify what these rights are that were reserved in this deed, so that each side can go on about their business as far as making the best and most appropriate use of Calf Pasture Beach, and so the Gardella family could make appropriate uses of their property. To that end, we mechanically broke this into 3 different agreements. The first agreement is the one entitled CPB. It's really Calf Pasture Beach is what CPB means. ROW is right away, so Calf Pasture Beach right away and road reconstruction agreement. I'll just refer to that as the master agreement. And that master agreement contemplates an exchange of 2 instruments, one being a declaration of, a declarification agreement, and the other being a restrictive covenant. And the city would exchange those agreements in return for, and would then be obligated to undergo some construction with respect to the agreements, and would receive some level of compensation under them. And this is all specified in the agreement. It's also included in your package, the actual full agreement, and my summary that I'm giving here today. So let me just try to unpack this a little bit, because that's kind of a lot of information. So if it's okay, I'd just like to share my screen for a second to walk everyone through this. So the first thing you'll notice in the Calf Pasture deed is at the end of the first page, there's this language that is italicized on my screen right now. And effectively what it says is that the prior and right interest holders in the properties now owned by Gardella reserved for themselves and for the benefit of their heirs, and assigns a right of way over the western and northerly side of Tract A. Tract A is simply Calf Pasture Beach, for access and egress to and from their respective lands. So here's Calf Pasture Beach. This is a directionally oriented view of Calf Pasture Beach. You can see based on my cursor, hopefully I have some computer issues now, but well, you can't really totally see my cursor, but obviously the northern portion is directly north of the parking lot, or at the top of the parking lot, as you see on your screen. And
By the way, Darren, I'm able to see your cursor. I assume others are as well.
Okay. And then the westerly portion is over here. So somewhere in this area of the lot, no one knows exactly where or how large, there's a right of ingress and egress to the lots. And so that was what we were principally called to do here, is figure out what that was. And so the resolution is basically specified or set forth, to put it more succinctly, in the instrument called the declarification agreement. And in a nutshell, there's a survey that more specifically delineates the mets and bounds and coordinate locations and all this. But just to kind of make it easier to see, the right of way it will now be designated as the magenta portions of the inbound and outbound lanes for Cow Pasture Beach, as shown on your screen. With and it's a little bit hard to see, but I'll try to zoom in a little bit. There is I really have a computer, as you say. There'll be driveways where my cursor is right here, and then at the top of the screen, one right here and one right here. And what those will allow for is access to three lots, which are will be the Gardella properties, and directly adjacent to each of those driveways, allowing essentially egress from the Gardella's properties into the outbound lane, will be a crossover median, for lack of a better term, between the middle of directly aligned with the driveways in between the middle of the inbound and outbound lanes. This includes the the easement area, or the right-of-way area would include the orange. The reason why it's shaded differently here, I'll get into it in a minute. So that's principally what we're doing here. So why the orange shaded area? Well, as currently configured, you can see that with my cursor that the road doesn't exist where the orange shaded area is. So the city is agreeing as part of this to undertake what I would call either a road realignment, road reconstruction project. And effectively, we're just moving the road to allow for the roads to run parallel in and out everywhere where the easement exists. And so this other sort of where the road kind of jogs out and it's not directly parallel, doesn't run kind of exactly right next to the inbound lane, will be, it's my understanding, will be eliminated. So we will undertake that as a responsibility as part of this agreement. And there will be some exchange of compensation, $100,000. There'll be $480,000 of total compensation exchanged. $100,000 will be directly allocated towards that construction project, and the balance for consideration for granting the declarification agreement and another agreement I'm about to get into in a minute. So as I mentioned, there were two issues: a reservation of a right of way, which we just discussed how it was addressed, and there was there were restrictions on use of the park, which I'm going to get to in a moment. But in the meantime, there was a request by the Gardella family that we allow for, or we grant certain easements over the area in between the inbound lane and the Gardella's parcel over where it is, or the northerly and westerly portions of the Gardella's properties. Excuse me, sorry, my allergies are going a little bit wild. And you can see that area, which was the area that was requested for the easements, shaded in yellow on your screen. After a lot of discussion, including a few discussions with multiple committees in executive session, it was clear that that was not going to be something that we could do. Moreover, typically when we do it, well, invariably when we do it, it's at the time when there's a site plan application pending before the Planning and Zoning Commission. And I think would be the appropriate time to revisit this issue. So the question was how to resolve the issue given the ask. And so effectively what we did is we said, okay, Um, we understand that you want the ability to come back and make the request at some later date, and there's a need to keep the status quo until that time. So we created basically a restriction over that area, a time limit restriction. It would be restricted for a period of 6 years, and that 6 years would simply be a period of time that would allow the Gardella family to look at all 3 lots and decide what they're doing with them, and an opportunity to make a site plan application and come back and see one or more of those easements that they were looking for over the past few years. And that was a resolution, and the actual language is right on your screen. So simply, we're agreeing to not to build anything or make any improvements in that area that would prevent the Gardella family from coming back and requesting an easement to construct specific things like public sidewalks or bike paths, underground facilities for electric, water, or sewer utilities. So one of the requests from the city relates to the restrictions in the deed, which I mentioned earlier. And the city felt very strongly that there was a need to clear up and modernize what was really very outdated language and really inconsistent with the historical use of the park, particularly in light of the willingness to resolve the maintain the status quo with respect to the area highlighted in yellow on your screen. So the request was, and what was agreed to, is that we would take the restrictive language in the deed, which is in bold on your screen, the general language being what's highlighted right here, and the specific restrictions that start right here and continue and are quite lengthy. And many of them are completely not relevant to current society, given the passage of 100 years since the restrictions were reserved in the deed. And what we came up with, and what we think is very fair and consistent with not only the current use, but the future use of the park, is the language on your screen right here. And so simply the reservation, or the sole restriction of the city's use of the land, will be for park purposes only. The park to be used by residents and non-residents of the city for recreation and bathing. And this is where it's modified, in any and all other uses associated with or accessory to a park or other land set aside for public recreational use. So that really cleans up the restrictions and puts in a very concise manner, and avoids any disagreement down the road with regards to what the city can and cannot do at the beach. That's basically, in a nutshell, what the agreement does. There's some more nuanced things, and I can get into them if the committee would like, regarding responsibility for maintenance and things of that nature, cost share allocation regarding maintenance. But that is really fundamentally what this agreement does. It clarifies the scope, location, and geographical footprint of the reserve right of way. It obligates the city to reconstruct the road or a portion of it, to implement that. It alters favorably the restricted language in the deed favorably to the city, and it maintains the status quo of the area of concern for the Gardellas favorably to the Gardellas. That's really, in a nutshell, what was accomplished here.
And if I could just add one more important thing that we that I believe the agreement accomplishes, and that is avoidance of litigation of many years of costly and uncertain litigation. And, you know, when this was initially presented to us, it was made clear that, you know, if we can't resolve this, that there would be a legal action filed, presumably an action for a declaratory judgment as to what the rights were, and one concern that all of us had. First of all, the Gardellas, as Attorney Cafaro has said, are synonymous with the city of Norwalk and had no desire to file litigation with the city. But at some point, if we couldn't reach an agreement, we understood they would have no choice, and presumably they would have to file an action for declaratory judgment for a court to decide, you know, if there's a disagreement as to what the rights are and what it means for access to their property, then a judge, if we can't figure it out amongst ourselves, a judge has to decide it. And the risk for everybody, not just but for the time and the money associated with litigation, was that we don't know what a judge would do. A lot of smart people getting together couldn't figure out exactly, you know, what would happen if a judge had to make a decision, because it was unclear in the title history, and so in the way everything was drafted and the way it exists and the way everything actually physically exists today. So the city and the Gardellas didn't want to rely on a judge to make a decision, which, you know, who knows what the judge would have decided. We all thought it made more sense for us to figure out what made the most sense for access and for the city, for its, you know, for the public, for its traffic in that area, but also for the Gardellas. So certainly that was a big accomplishment as well, which is hopefully the litigation avoidance and not having a judge make a decision that we all may regret.
Thank you, Mario. Thank you, Darren. So again, you know, I want to thank both of you. You've been working on this, like you said, 6-7 years now, and it's been, you know, a real challenge. Again, I would also like to thank attorneys Cafaro and Suchi for, you know, bringing us to this agreement. It's been a long, long time coming. Do we have any questions? You know, we did have the executive session last week where we did have some questions answered. Mr. Meek, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. Several questions. Well, first, let me say, I think I'm open to the concept generally. I just have a bunch of questions. And, you know, I don't want to be accused by any of my peers of going after wealthy people. So let me just say, I think I'm for this whole development going forward. I mean, in the category of potential uses, and I understand we can't hold the respondents here to say what's going to go in there, but what's possibly going to go in there. And I mean, you removed gaming from the language. I mean, a casino could go in here. What do we think's going in here? What's kind of the best use of the spot? And I'm assuming we're talking about developing the old Ascension property, no?
No,
So
No.
just to clarify, the deed restrictions were burdening the calf pasture beach, the use of calf pasture beach. So what it eliminates, or what it does is allow for greater use of calf pasture beach.
If
Okay.
I may try to also chime in on an answer to that. Mr. Meek, the restrictions, as Darren just said, pertain to what the city could use the park for. And what had happened in the past, if you were to read the 100-year-old restrictions, it said you couldn't have any business there, which means a restaurant or anything. You couldn't really have ballparks there. And obviously all those things have been there without incident and without the objection from the Gardella family. So the city said, listen, we don't want to keep having these mutually agree upon uses that, based on the letter of the law back in 1922, are in violation. So let's get rid of them. Gardella said, we agree, but we have to have some general restrictions there so that, you couldn't put a gambling facility, et cetera. And that's why we came up with the language of using it as a park for recreation and bathing for both residents and non-residents. So we have these park uses that we're all in agreement on. With regard to your question, Mr. Meek, that would pertain to the three parcels owned by the Gardellas. And I think what you're asking is, are there any restrictions on what they could develop in those three parcels? And the answer is yes, it's controlled by zoning, like all of your parcels are in the city of Norwalk. So if the Gardellas down the road were to come up with a use that was not allowed in that particular district, just like anybody else, it would be turned down or denied for various reasons. Could be traffic or what have you. So the restrictions that go on any piece of property, depending on what zone they're in, still pertain to the Gardellas with regard to the three parcels they hope to develop someday. So the city always has that protection with regard to what goes on there. The restrictions we're referring to again is, what are the restrictions upon the city for what they could do within that park? And the general restriction we agreed upon was they have to keep it for park-like purposes, again, for the general enjoyment, recreation, and bathing of residents and non-residents alike.
Thank you, Counselor. So just a couple other questions. Had to go to some of the technicalities in the contract. I didn't understand the contract that says the closing date is March 1st, 2023. I guess that would be adjusted, no? I mean, we're doing some things in arrears here. Is this one of them?
That's a typo. It should be 2024.
Okay.
Yeah, but
And thank you, that's fine. If we can clean that up. And then there's also a blank where the exact mileage is of I believe that relates to the access road. It's just a blank. And I think we're talking what, from the old gatehouse down to the Coast Guard Auxiliary, maybe a quarter mile, I would guess. But there's nothing in there.
yeah,
I'm
so
sorry, I don't have the exact reference page in front of me.
know exactly what you're referencing. It's in one of the whereas clauses. And
Oh,
so
Okay, oh, thanks. It's 97 pages. I'm sorry I didn't memorize it.
yeah, no, it's a lot of paper. So there's a survey that's referenced and it's included in the document, and it would just be calculated off the survey. I just haven't actually calculated the mileage.
So then the last question, I'm trying to get my head around this part of it more than anything, is we're going to get $480,000. We're getting concessions on some old language being cleaned up from the original quitclaim restrictions. And then we have to build these three driveways, we have a construction completion date in May of 2025. And I don't know, three driveways making the access road into a legal street, doesn't $480,000 and a time deadline of May 2025 seem a little thin on what we can actually do?
So I'll defer to Vanessa on that. The Public Works could weigh in on the cost of the project.
So, Mr. Meek, we ended up going back and forth, and we did a numerous estimate before we came into an agreement with the value. The cost will be, the driveways actually already exist. We're gonna just pay for them. They are already in place. And then there is also a cost share from the city side because we are realigning the road as well. The reason that we are realigning the road, that was that magenta color that Attorney Callahan showed, was so this way we can also create a better area for the park. So we're pushing a little bit the road to the north, one segment, and then we're gonna end up having a different configuration for the park later on. So we are comfortable with the portion that Gardella is contributing to us, but we do understand there is some part of a city cost share that will be added to the cost of the project because there is some future improvements to the park that we want to do.
Okay, what's our share? 1 million, 5 million, somewhere in between?
I would say depend for the parking lot is not, I don't have the number yet. But, for the road, it's probably, less than half of what they are giving to us.
Okay, thanks. I mean, and do you think you can get this all done by May of 2025, or is that date a typo like the closing date?
No, this is exactly the date that I discussed with legal. I'm very
So
confident.
so that's the last question. The way I read the contract is if we don't, meaning we the city, if we don't make all these improvements, then the Gardellas have recourse to go in and get them done and then send us the bill. Is that right? Do I understand that correctly?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Time's ticking. I've taken enough of it. Thank you very much.
Okay, any other questions? Comments? Okay, seeing none, I am going to go ahead. Call for- I'm sorry, who's, Ms. Ayers?
Sorry. No, it's me.
Oh, okay, go ahead, go ahead.
Good question.
Goldstein.
Just a little bit of a timeline to get a sense of when the new agreements and the new deeds get recorded, assuming this gets passed by the council. When do you expect this would go into full force and effect?
So, thank you, Councilman Goldstein. So, we would execute the agreement after the referendum period upon council approval. And we would conduct the closing on or before March 1st of 2024, or some other mutually agreed upon date. The sole purpose of having a closing date different than the execution date is the Gardells has for some time. There's a few things that need to be done in between the signing of the contract and the closing in order to effectuate it. Not a lot, but there are a few things. But to answer your question, the instruments would be recorded at the time of closing. So at the time of the payment of the consideration, the $480,000, we would tender the two agreements, the declarification agreement and the restrictive covenant. And those would be recorded on the land records at that time. We would then become obligated upon that closing to do the construction project.
Okay. And I realize that there are some times for the Gardellas to handle various aspects or various affairs before the closing. Is there recourse if those delays end up being longer than expected? Is there a plan to deal with that if that's even something that arises?
A delay in the closing?
Yeah, any sort of delay in the closing.
There's no specific recourse that's contractually set forth for delay in the closing. There would be remedies at law would be the default. The main remedy that are addressed are contemplated in the agreement is, and I understand why, is that if for some reason the city's unable to complete the construction project within some reasonable period of time, the Gardellas want to have the ability to go do it so that they can get it in place. They've agreed to compensate us, or at least allocate a portion of that compensation to the cost of the project. So their recourse against us would be return of that funds. Their recourse would be actually limited in an extent to the return of those funds. Any overage would be allocated towards their ongoing future maintenance obligations. We placed in the agreement a 50-50 cost share obligation for the maintenance of that roadway to be shared between the city and the Gardella family going in the future. Now, it probably won't be required anytime soon, given that the road's going to be reconfigured and it'll be essentially new pavement. But 10 years down the road, if it needs to be maintained, it's a cost share. And if for some reason the construction was undertaken by the Gardellas because the city didn't do it, they could recapture the $100,000, but to recapture the balance, would not occur until that cost share obligation arises down the road. If that makes sense.
It does, thank you. That's all I got.
All right, is that it? Okay, and I just want to clarify too, before we vote, that this will move to Planning and Zoning Commission before it needs to be approved there before it can come to the Common Council. So that is the process. Okay, all in favor, please signify by raising your hand.
Hey, Barbara, I think it needs to be two
Call
votes.
two separate votes? Okay.
Yeah.
We can do that. Okay. All right. So let me first call the vote of the Public Works Committee. Public Works, please signify by raising your hand. We have Ms. Young, Ms. Nadjelski Eichner, myself, Mr. Freyer, and Mr. Meek, all in favor. That means we have no one opposed on Public Works or abstentions. And so I will go ahead and turn it over to Ms. Young. Oh, and Ms. Young, you're a yes, in case I missed that. Okay. Ms. Young, are you there?
Thank you. I
Yeah,
had to take my hand down and turn it on. Okay, so a vote of the Recreation and Parks Committee. I have Ms. McMurr, Mr. Goldstein, Ms. Ayers, and I think I saw Mr. Meek and myself.
Okay.
You're all in favor? Mr. Meek, you are all in favor? Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, unanimous vote of both committees. So again, this goes on to Planning and Zoning and then to the Common Council, and the Recreation and Parks Committee is free to leave, and we will continue on with the Public Works, regular monthly meeting of the Public Works. Again, thank you all very much for being here, and thank you for your work on this item.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Young,
Thank
can I
you.
recommend that the Parks and Recs Committee formally adjourn their meeting.
Okay, so we're adjourning the Recreation and Parks Committee meeting at 7:22. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Good night.
Okay. All right, so let's move on to item 4 under Public Works. Authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute any and all agreements and other documents necessary to enter into a data sharing confidentiality agreement with the First Taxing District, the FTD, whereby the FTD will provide the WPCA supply water consumption data of the individual customers of the FTD, including total metered gallons, service address, owner's name, account number, and account type. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Okay, Mr. Freyer. This item was tabled at our last meeting just so that we could gather some additional information, particularly around confidentiality, which appears to have been cleared up in the memo. Ms. Young, do you have a question?
No, I was trying to move the item. I will lower my
Oh,
hand.
thank you.
Sorry, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
okay. All right. Okay, so let me turn this over to Vanessa to just go through the details of the item again and talk about the confidentiality aspect and what exactly we're doing here.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. As we mentioned in the last meeting, we have been request First Water District to share all their water meter readings to the WPCA so we can have a very accurate charge of the sewer fees. That particular applies for the commercial business because those, the residential, as you are aware, it's a flat fee, but the commercial fees are an estimate as of now. And we've been able to share the data. We're gonna be more accurate on charging our customers. So we already have pretty much all the information, all the data that they are transferring. There's not new information to us besides the water meter reading. So I can ask Mr. Kellingham to explain a little bit more why the First Water District is requiring us to get into this agreement, but this is just an agreement, so we're not gonna share with a third party the data that we're gonna receive.
Thanks, Vanessa. So, so this agreement arose based on essentially the city's request for the data. And historically, it's been not denied as not subject to FOI and on the basis of confidentiality. The first, the water district, the first taxing district, the water district, is willing to provide the data, provided it remains confidential by agreement. And on their own accord, and with their own legal counsel, has determined the legal right with a confidentiality agreement to share that data. For the record, I happen to agree with the analysis of their counsel and the way they suggested we proceed. So having understood that we were seeking this data over, well, Ralph, 10 plus years, I'm sure. I met with Ralph and Vanessa and said, okay, would this structure work for you? Would this facilitate from a practical standpoint what you're trying to do from a business perspective? And from that, we cobbled together a very short agreement, and the full agreement should be in your package. There should be a memorandum. I'm pulling it up right now as we talk, which is why I sound a little bit distracted. But there's a very short one-page memorandum, a third of which is the authorization language, and then directly following is the actual agreement, which we had hashed out with the first taxing district. The agreement is in principle between the first taxing district and the Water Pollution Control Authority. When I say in principle, I mean the Water Pollution Control Authority is the one that really has jurisdiction over this issue. However, because of the way the Water Pollution Control Authority is staffed with employees, those employees being technically city personnel, W-2 city personnel, the first taxing district asked us, or was more comfortable, I should say, if it was signed by the Water Pollution Control Authority chairman and by the city separately. Now, I happen to believe that I am happy to be of the opinion that the Water Pollution Control Authority is simply part of the city of Norwalk, in that when it's acting with its jurisdiction, it's acting on behalf of the city of Norwalk, and that we would be bound either way. But there was really no reason to engage in a debate over it, because we're not doing anything different. The Water Pollution Control Authority approves the agreement. This, in my opinion, and I pass this across some of my colleagues, the city's bound either way. But it made the first taxing district feel more comfortable. So instead of just doing an approval through the Water Pollution Control Authority, we've done an approval through the general process we follow for the city, which is through committee and then through council. But the end result is effectively no different from this perspective of the law department. This is solely to provide a greater level of comfort to the first taxing district. In terms of the agreement itself, there's not much there. It's all of really 2 pages long. The main clause is in item Roman 4, subparagraph A, which requires confidentiality. B requires to use reasonable technology to ensure that confidentiality, which we already have in place through our informational technology group. C simply states the current amount they charge for the data that we're requesting, and that should they change it, that we would pay that amount. Again, we're not required to pay any specific amount. It's only if we request the data and they provide it, then they could charge us for it. We're not obligated to pay them some annual fee. solely at our discretion. And that's really it. I mean, those are the substantive terms. We are agreeing, and I think rightfully so, that if there should be a data breach with respect to the data we're holding, that we're agreeing to indemnify and hold them harmless for it. But that would be the case in any scenario where we had a data breach. We would be responsible for liability that rose from the data breach. So there's not much that is really being done under this agreement, other than we are agreeing in writing to maintain the confidentiality of the data being exchanged. And again, it's really a very minimal amount of what I would call confident. We're already holding the vast majority of the data. What we're not holding is the account number and the actual meter readings. But we know the rest. We know that the name of the individuals. We know that the street addresses. There's other things that are part and parcel of the data that we already have. And that's it.
Okay, thanks very much, Darren. And we did talk about this fairly extensively at our last meeting. And so, you know, hopefully this clarifies any questions that were lingering. Does anyone have any questions or comments or concerns? Okay. Okay. So, you know, and I just want, you know, because I did receive an email from Ms. Cece just as a follow-up. She did not ask for it to be read, you know, into the record, but I'm going to clarify something just for that, because she did join us last month. Just that this is we're looking for commercial information. The First Taxing District is unable to break that information up for us, but the WPCA will be able to do that, and there is confidentiality for our residents. So those were her main concerns. So I just wanted to address that. Anything else? Okay, let's go ahead and vote then. All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions. All right, that carries unanimously. Thank you. All right, moving on to item 5, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to enter into a right of entry and access license with Connecticut Department of Transportation for the temporary installation, maintenance, and operation of a variable messaging sign for marine users at various locations in connection with the Walk Bridge replacement project. Will someone move that item, please? Ms. Young moves the item. Okay, so Vanessa, why don't you go ahead and discuss this? These are easements that are on our property.
Correct. Actually, what you have in front of you is
Right of entry.
right of entry. So the Walk Bridge has shred some variable messenger signs along the harbor, pretty much along the river, due to the construction that will be happening at the bridge, and they identify a couple of our parcels where they want to put the VM signs. One is at Oyster Shell Park, the other is right behind the aquarium, and one is on along Water Street, besides other private and Vets Park. So what we're doing now, and we're gonna actually ended up getting a construction easement. We went back to them and we say, we're not gonna allow you guys to install, just to install, we want a construction easement to it. So what we allow them to do, what we are allowing them to do is to get into a right of entry with us now. Meanwhile, all the maps get done, and then we're gonna come back in front of you for the approval of a construction easement for the project, because we understand that the VM signs, although they are temporary, they're going to be there for a few years. I just want to also tell you guys that all these locations have already been discussed, and Rex and Part staff is aware of it, and they have already changed, and the program has addressed our comments and concerns. So this final location where the VM signs will be located is approved by staff of Public Works and also Rex and Parks.
Questions? Mr. Meek?
Yeah, just a general idea of where the signage is. It's along the river on each side of the railroad bridge. Is that right? Or are there other things?
There are a few locations, Mr. Meek, if you look at the package, we include pictures of where
Okay.
the are, but I'm happy to go over with you.
It was
Um,
no, it's a huge package. My fault. I will look at it. Thank you.
So there is an aerial picture that you're gonna see where show all the locations of all the signs that will be installed. There is about 8, but it's not all of us in our property. In our property will be the one on Oyster Shell Park, the one right behind the aquarium, one between the aquarium and Oyster Shell Park on Water Street, and one on Vets Park. Those are the
Thank-
ones that.
Thank you
is-
very much. I found the slide. It's pretty clear. Those are land-based though, right? They're not like floating in the river, right?
No, they are, it looks like exactly those construction VM signs that you
Okay.
see. So this is exactly that.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
Okay, any more questions, comments? Okay, I will call for a vote. All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay. Opposed? Okay, abstentions? Okay, that passes 4-1. Ms. Nadjelski Eichner is a no. Moving on to item 6, authorize the purchasing agent to authorize a sole.
Excuse me, Chair,
Yes.
my apologies. I think I think I'm just on delay because I'm
Oh, okay.
not on a wireless network. No, I was a vote yes.
Oh, okay. Thanks very much. Okay, so passes unanimously. Thanks for that catch. Okay, on to item 6, authorize the purchasing agent to authorize a sole source purchase order to Cargill Salt for treated road salt for snow and ice control, pricing not to exceed $105 per ton for normal and after-hour deliveries effective for the 2023 snow season. Account number noted. Will someone move that item, please? Ms. Young has it. We're paying less this year than we did last year, and we didn't even have to buy salt last year, which is my understanding. Does Chris want to take this? Hey, Chris,
You're muted, Chris.
you're muted. I like your background, by the way, while we're waiting. for you.
Oh, thank you. Yes, you were correct. We did not buy salt last year. I'm hoping we don't have to buy salt this year either, but you never know. So if anyone has any questions, we've been using Clear Lane for about 13 years now. It's worked fantastic for us. Vanessa and I did meet with representatives from Cargill over the summer to see if we can buy the salt in the summer when the price was even lower, and we couldn't, but it's certainly something that we'll try again next year.
But we are actually paying, as Ms. Smith said, we are paying $3 less than last year price. Last year, we had a very high commodity. We're really holding to not buy the salt, and the winter helped us being mild, so we didn't end up buying 1 ton of salt last year at 108. But now we are able this year to get for a lower price as 105.
And you've talked about this in years past, Chris, that this is the most environmentally sound salt that we can purchase that is effective.
Treated, yes.
Yeah.
Considering we do not use direct liquid application anymore, it was bad for the environment and it was kind of unsafe.
Yeah, which is terrific. So thank you. Okay, any questions? All in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? Was that a yes, Brian? That's a yes. Okay, all right, so that passes unanimously. Thank you. On to item 7, a technical correction of the Common Council action of November 8th, 2022. Item 7C3, to authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute an agreement with Crown Castle International for the East Avenue Advanced Utility Project number 0301-0515 NP for an amount not to exceed $170,000, to authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute an agreement with Crown Castle International for the East Avenue Advanced Utility Project number 0301-0515 NP for an estimated amount of $195,965.10. Account number noted, numbers noted. Will someone move that, please? Mr. Freyer moves the item. This is around the undergrounding of utilities on East Avenue, and there's been a revision of the estimate, and so we've got to do this legally. Vanessa?
Yes, so that's correct. You guys approved this item a few months ago, and as I explained before, we're responsible for the underground utilities between Four Point and Olmsted. So that is our share, and we're paying also the utilities to do the work. What happened is that for us to be able to get into the agreement with the utility companies, they come up with an estimate on how much that will cost. We're doing the agreement and then creating a PO so they can start the work. We're gonna be billed after the work, of course, is completed, and so this is really a rough estimate. What happened was that when we approved last time, we approved at an estimate of $170,000. By the time that the attorneys got into the in agreement with what will be the right language that should be in the agreement, when they asked for a revised estimate, now the estimate is at $195,000. So Crown Castle would like us to, since we're gonna sign the agreement now, they want the agreement to reflect the latest estimate. Again, this doesn't hold us to that value because part of the agreement say that we're gonna be reimbursing part based on the scope and whatever will be the cost on that date, because we do not have yet a final date when the work will be completed. So that's why the revision is in front of you. And I'm open to any questions that you guys may have.
Mr. Meek?
Thank you. I mean, besides a 15% increase, what exactly does this project do? This is Crown Castle, if I'm not mistaken, is a provider of cellular communications to various providers. Vis-a-vis Verizon, et cetera. Like, why are we paying for any of this? Why don't they just put it up?
Because we are undergrounding it. So we are building the infrastructure for them to move out of the poles, and we're gonna move underground. So we have to pay for them to be able to pull their wires through the infrastructure that we're building.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, let's go ahead and vote then. All in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? Okay, Mr. Meek.
Opposed.
Okay, Mr. Meek is opposed, and that passes 4-5. Okay, moving on to item 8, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute an amendment to the March 22nd, 2023 agreement between the City of Norwalk and Kelowna Masonry, Concrete and Asphalt Paving, LLC for project RD 2023-1, curb and sidewalk for Spring Hill Avenue area for amount not to exceed $200,000. Account numbers noted. Who would like to move that, please? Ms. Young moves the item. Vanessa, I'll turn that over to you. We're adding to the scope of work on this project.
That's correct. Mr. Meehan will take that.
Meehan, okay.
Yeah, so basically the original contract talked about installing curbs and sidewalk from Riverside up to Kavanaugh. It wasn't sure if it was feasible at the time, but it seems feasible now. We'd like to continue it up to Ponus Avenue. We could feel and also reach into Ponus itself, and we feel we could extend to a lot of pedestrians in the area, making things a little more safer. And we'd like to get that started as soon as possible.
Okay, Mr. Meek?
Thanks. How many linear feet is that?
Oh, I offhand, you mean for the new construction?
Yeah, the addition, right? You wanna swing this up? I'm probably in favor of it. I'm just curious, how many linear feet is that from Spring
Give me
Hill
one
up to
second,
Ponus?
I'm sorry, offhand, I have to just take a look at something here.
I'm just trying to get an idea how much we're paying for a foot of sidewalk.
Sir, yes, yes.
I mean, I won't hold you to it. If you want to give me a ballpark on how much it costs to install a foot of
I'd say
sidewalk.
it's probably, hard to guess, because we're going around, we're not just going from one block to another, we're crossing over into a median, going across over there, doing sections of Ponus, so it's probably a couple hundred feet as well, and involves some drainage relocation, so, that's probably, I'd have to,
We don't have the right number.
we don't have the exact.
Okay, so a couple of cutouts aside, we're talking about $500, maybe $500 for a foot. At 200 gets us to 100,000, and throwing another 100 for the various cutouts. I just trying to get a ballpark guess what that costs us. And are you? I'm sorry.
The cost, the cost will be very similar to our unit prices that we had already in this contract.
Okay, and this is the construction where you have like Bain Street, where you have a concrete curb that's overlaid on the asphalt, or is it subgrade and then you have
All
asphalt?
concrete in this one.
New concrete curb, it's not extruded,
Okay.
not extruded curb, that's what you're referring to, no, it's
Unextruded, it goes about a foot below grade for like structural integrity.
Yes.
Okay, and then you got what, like a 30 or 36 inch asphalt footpath with
No, it's concrete sidewalk. It's concrete
oh,
sidewalk.
concrete.
Yes.
Okay, okay.
Concrete on
Yeah, yes, along with
Okay,
several
right,
pedestrian
that helps.
ramps.
okay. Thanks, that helps me understand the price. Honestly, I don't understand why we're doing asphalt in some places and
I can answer
concrete
that.
in others, but that's a lesson for another night, I think.
We follow a map. There is a map that was created many years ago. And depending if it is considered an urban area and the type of where that street falls into the map, it defines what type of sidewalk finishing you get.
Okay,
So,
but we're
I'm happy to have you over and I will show you the map here and then you can see that's how exactly, because we look at the map and then we have our roadway standards. And based on where is that street, the type of road, where it is, will dictate the finishing of the sidewalk.
okay, great, thanks. And just one last question, I'm sorry.
Well,
Are we still under the general rule that if we, the city, pour concrete, we own that asset forever? Whereas if we put asphalt down, the homeowner has to maintain that?
All
No.
of those are maintained by the homeowner by ordinance,
whether it's
Okay.
asphalt or
regardless of what type.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Ms. Young? You have a question?
Yeah, sort of comment, I mean, to Mr. Meek's question about, or just comment about the combination of concrete sidewalks and asphalt. I think this has come up before, and I think it's something that we need to look at. I think we need to address that. It looks strange in different ways, and I think that's something that is of concern. My question to Mr. Meek is also, with that questioning, you're questioning the cost. So did that seem to fall in line, or were you just?
Oh, I mean, concrete's a lot more expensive. It has to be formed.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a lot more expensive for the concrete ones. I mean, they last longer too. So you
Right.
get what you pay for.
Right.
The curb being below grade at street level is very important. It protects the integrity of the road and the drainage.
And the plowing, and during plowing. also.
Yeah, whereas like when they roll out one of those asphalt curbs, I mean, you could knock that thing out with a garden
Right.
shovel.
Right, right, right.
A-
Which I
and
think is a
the-
concern, and the longevity of the lifespan of that asphalt versus concrete, there's no comparison, right?
Yeah,
Mrs. Young,
till our plows smash into them, not that
Right.
they aren't perfect drivers in snowstorms.
but we'll go back and fix it. Oh, they also put my bill. But I just want to answer to Miss Young, Miss Smith, if I may.
Yeah.
There is, under the TMP, we have engaged a consultant and we're developing what we're calling the complete streets. And we do understand that there are different types of sidewalks or even curbs that we've been using throughout the city. And we're hoping that when all this is completed, we're gonna probably have a little bit of a change and be able to have the same type of finishing in some types of neighborhoods. So we understand what we were saying, it was heard, and now we are in the process of having all that revamped. And I believe that also this map that I referred to, the boundaries may be changed to accommodate some of the wishes that the public wants. And there was a public meeting last week here at City Hall, exactly to go through a workshop and try to understand what the public wants. I have to say, and Mr. Meehan is here to witness and confirm that a lot of people have different opinions about what type of sidewalk they want in front of their house. Some people do love the asphalt and they do not like at all the concrete. And there are times that we go with the asphalt and they don't want it all because they think that the concrete is better. So again, we do not make the decision based on, okay, this is street, we believe we should put a concrete or asphalt, or we should put a granite curb or an asphalt curb or a concrete curb. We follow the map and we cross-reference with our roadway standards. So this way, everybody gets fair treatment based on what the city planning and zoning map.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Vanessa.
yeah, thank you.
Oh, go ahead, Darlene.
No, go
Are you-
ahead. And I'm just saying thank you for that. And I'm just happy that we're at least looking at it, because I think there is some room for us to really kind of modify that, and in particular, when you think of South Norwalk and an urban core, that's got everything, everything from tractor trailers to small cars and people. I think the sidewalks are important, and I think concrete seems to be best, but I'm just happy that we're having that conversation to hear that.
But there is a very high cost associated to make it concrete.
Yeah.
And sometimes you will see that sometimes when at the end of the year, we always put out our metrics about how many linear foot of sidewalk we do.
Yeah.
And sometimes that number can be really changed year by year, depending on the type of sidewalk that we did.
Yeah, and I just wanted to point out, I know that there's a couple of areas where we've had the footpaths that we are now turning to concrete sidewalks. I know there's at least a couple of those projects around. I have a question around, like on Aiken Street, for example, there's a concrete curb, but the sidewalk is the yeah, the asphalt. So, and is that done because, is that part of the Safe Streets to School? Is that, is there an expectation that those sidewalks are going to hold up a little better?
Well, you said just the concrete curb itself, or you talked about the ramps, pedestrian ramps going down?
The curb, yeah, I've noticed the curb is actually concrete with the asphalt sidewalk.
I've seen that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the condition that was decided for that road in conjunction with TMP.
Okay.
That's Bain Street too.
Yes.
Yeah, right. Main Street. Yeah. I mean, those are very heavy use roads and
And it is related to the Safe Route to Schools. It's the same that we did at High.
I'm not opposed to the by 2 minutes footpath. If we have the concrete curb, that goes a long way, but
I particularly liked a lot that look, Mr. Meek. I know that you know.
I'd rather have the curb and concrete than anything.
With asphalt sidewalk in some residential areas. I think Mr. Ferrer has a
Yeah,
question.
go ahead.
Yes, you referred to the maps before. Is that how you decide? I'm having a little difficulty hearing you too, Vanessa. So
Yes,
forgive
I'm
me,
sorry.
but the maps that you referred to designate whether you're going to have asphalt or concrete walkways or sidewalks. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So
So how
we have
often? So
that-
how often would you update those maps?
We
And I'm
don't.
thinking because I was at that workshop last week for Complete Streets, and I could see that there are all sorts of different sizes and combinations and permutations of how you want to set up a roadway. And I would think that any maps that you would have that may be a year or two old are going to be completely changed, particularly with the development that's going on in the city.
Correct. So, Mr. Freire, the map that I'm referring to is very old. Like it's not 1 or 2 years, it's much longer. We do not edit that map because it's under the planning and zoning. It is where they qualify what they call the urban core, and there is another one for the high intensity core. So based on that map, we have our roadway standards. As part of the complete street, one of the things that we brought up to the consultant is that we believe that that map has to be revised. One of the biggest issues that we have on that map is that the circle where they identify those urban areas sometimes cut streets in half. So if we go by the map, half of the street will get one treatment and the other half will get another treatment.
Right.
So that's why we're asking them to also help us redefine what is the line of the map. And then after that, we're gonna revise our roadway standards to make sure that, you know, it's very consistent.
Yeah. No, that's what I was hoping you would say, because that was a very good, very, very interesting workshop that we had, and it just opened my eyes up to the amount of varying design and shapes and forms that any of these roads could take based on the population, the demographics of the area that you're going through. So I would think that if you've got something that's even 5 years old, it's obsolete by now.
You're correct.
Okay, good.
Okay, any more questions on that item? Okay, seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay.
Aye.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, that passes unanimously, thank you. And item 9, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute a First Amendment to the original November 22nd, 2022 agreement between the City of Norwalk and A. Vitti Excavators LLC for project BR 2021-1, Site 1 and 2, Bonnie Brook Road over Holy Ghost Fathers Brook, Site 1, and Cannon Street over Betts Pond Brook, Site 2, for a sum not to exceed $220,000, account numbers noted. Will someone move that item, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Young. Okay, I'm going to turn this over to you, Vanessa.
So we're requesting to amend the contract because we would like to do a little bit of beautification to some of those show covered bridges that we put in. One thing is that in our original contract, we have the regular metal guardrail, and we are changing to the Merit Parkway guardrail, that is the wooden one. Also, we would like to add some stone veneer to the bridge of Cannon Street, and also add a sidewalk, because we understand that there is an area, although there was no sidewalk in that area, it's an area that a lot of people walk around. So we look at it and we believe we can add a sidewalk there as well. So that's why we're in front of you. We hope that you guys can support this so we can still get this done this year. I believe we can definitely finish this in the next 4 weeks.
Questions? Ms. Young, and then Mr. Meek. Darlene?
I'm talking and talking and talking. I'm sorry. So, and wondering why nobody's answering me. So, I think this is a great, it sounds like a nice project. And I'm just wondering, is this something out of our 10-year POCD? Is this part of,
This is not a
that-
new project, Ms. Young. This is an amendment to,
oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
yeah. So this is part of the bridge repairs. The
Mhm.
original project was when, about 3 years ago, we did an inspection on all the bridges that had a span of less than 20 feet. And what we identify, some of them need some work. So what we have, and yes, it's part of the POCD, we have a capital line where we are trying to rehabilitate some of those. They're actually more culverts than bridges because they're not big. So we try to do some design and some construction on the most critical ones. What happened is, and that's what we did with this originally on the first bid. But now that we're pretty much completed with it, we believe that we can do something else besides not only repair what needs to be fixed. We believe that we can make it, the little bridge look nicer, particularly in those residential neighborhoods. So that's why we're here. Again, as I mentioned in our last meeting, we understand that there are some people that really want the bridges that is above their properties to look nice.
Right.
And that's what we're doing. We're here
Right.
with ways of make that happen. And this is the funds that we need to be able to change the guardrail, maybe add some stone veneer and also give connectivity for the walkers around there.
Right. Well, that's what I said, but it sounds like a really nice project. But the other question was this part of the POCD at all? Or it wouldn't
Yes,
be?
as
I mean,
maintenance
as
of,
far as beautification goes, then we are looking at that being part of the 10-year plan.
correct.
Okay.
Mr. Meek?
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. What was the original price of the contracts? And,
$675,000, Mr. Meek.
okay, so what, we're going for an additional 2?
Yes, so,
Okay,
220,
for all the other things you described, I understand. Okay.
Right.
Sounds like a nice project.
Right.
and, don't quote me on that, I still have a little bit of a contingency, so I probably, we're not gonna probably spend all this.
Okay.
money, but the safe side.
All right, under promise, over deliver, please.
Yes.
Yeah, I really support this. You know, I drive by that Cannon Street bridge almost every day. And it definitely needs some beautification. And I understand the issue around that because you know, you have you need a crash wall, right? And you know, as people come down, what's it, down Cannon. But it really does need some beautification. That's a pretty little park with historic homes and historic stone walls around it. And so I think that that's going to go a long way to making it look better and to improving safety for the residents who do walk there on a regular basis. So I support this fully. So Ms. Young, you have something else? You're still muted, Darlene.
It's past my bedtime, guys. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Yeah, so I was just thinking, and then so the maintenance is on us, right? I mean, that's something that we'll have to maintain, however. Either
Yes.
PW, Recreation and Parks, or whomever. Okay.
No.
Can't wait to see it. I
Okay.
promise I'm not going to mute myself anymore. I'm just gonna.
Yeah, you could just leave your microphone on, and then when like me, when my dogs start barking, I got to turn it off. Okay, let's vote on that. All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, looks like it's unanimous. All right, so that takes care of our new business, and we can move on now to information and discussion. The Public Works Open House coming up October 21st. Vanessa, you want to talk about that?
Yes, we're very excited. We're gonna make as a Halloween theme because we had to move our Public Works Open House that usually happen on late September or early October, but unfortunately, there were so many activities and with some holidays, we believe that October 21st will be the day that we can have most of the community attending. I hope to see all of you there. We're gonna have a lot of things this year besides, of course, we have to bring some perishable food that will be donated to person. Besides that, you can come in your costume. Usually the kids will come on your costume, but we're trying to add also some information and public outreach there, particularly on the solid waste and recycling. But we're also gonna have, and I'm taking all that from Tom, but we're gonna have the iRecycle, that is one of our programs that now we purchased the water bottles, that pop-up event is gonna talk more about it, how it has been doing, but we're gonna have one also at the open house. And for those that haven't, you'll have the opportunity to tour our wastewater treatment plant. So it's a lot of fun. So I hope you guys can come and join us. And
It's a great event. It's really fun. Great to get the kids there. Unfortunately, I can't make it. I'm going to be out of town for my dad's 90th birthday that weekend. So that's a pretty important thing. So, but yeah, everybody definitely check it out because it's fun. Moving on to tree operations and programming. I know we're not planting much, but Chris, you're going to give us an update?
Absolutely.
When you've got your trees in the background. I love it. Your Dr. Seuss trees.
That's right. So to save some time, we removed 32 trees in August. Just so you know, half were weeds that grow 80 feet. That's the tree of heaven. If you don't know what it is, it's something that was brought over 200 years ago and we have to live with now. But it does look like a tree, but it is a weed. But anything over 8 inches is considered a tree by our ordinance. So that's why I included. And then we did 68 safety prunings. The locations are in the background, the backup, to save time. If anyone has any questions, I'd love to answer them.
Also, I want to add that although we haven't planted yet the trees that you guys are gonna listen in the next meeting, we are in the process of staking an order between 150 to 200 trees that should be in the ground in the next 2 or 3 weeks.
Very excited about that.
Great. Okay, any questions? All right, let's move on to the monthly solid waste report and then the food scrap. Thomas?
Hello, I will start with the transfer station report for August. The monthly tonnages are up a little bit. The only one that's up more than 10% is the curbside recycling. And that's, I think, balanced out with the rise in curbside waste. That equates to recycling's up about 2% more. So that's good. And we've also had 2 events. Vanessa had mentioned the iRecycle one. We've gotten a pretty good amount of foot traffic that I did not expect. So we're really kind of at the right spot in the community to make sure we're really getting the use out of this program. It's a very efficient one. A lot of people who have come, they've got 4 or 5 bags of recycling, and at the grocery store redemption centers, putting those in one at a time usually takes more than 45 minutes. So we're definitely making the residents who have used it so far pretty happy. Another thing to note is the bottle deposit is going to be going up to 10 cents in January. So I think it's a great time that we're starting this program, and we'll really kind of be able to reach out to more residents through word of mouth, and also our social media pages have been really effective so far. We also had our last mattress recycling drop off, and this one we kind of hit the top end of our best collection so far at 50 mattresses. This program, as you may know, is funded through the state's extended producer responsibility. So it's free to the city and definitely saves us some money. And then for our compost report, this month, the Rowayton Community Center did an amazing job. They did 7,200 pounds. That's up almost 2,000 pounds from the previous month. The transfer station is at 4,500 pounds and Cranberry Park at 2,400 pounds. I think going forward in the next couple of months with the holidays, I'm going to try to push some more composting and food scraps reduction materials on social media. I think the holidays are a good time to kind of get people just acclimated with it a little bit more, and maybe not, try to convince someone to fully commit to composting the entire year. So that's all I have. If you guys have any questions, feel free.
Thank you very much. I might be responsible for that reduction in Cranberry Park last month because I was away most of the month. So I use it all the time. It's terrific.
Well, don't look at me for the increase.
Actually,
I'm looking at
I ran it down to Jim's house and he dropped it. Darlene, go ahead. You have something.
That's really great numbers, Thomas, and great work. I'm wondering about the food compost. So are we doing it? How much is coming out of South Norwalk? And if not a lot, because I don't hear the numbers, are there any best practices around how you do that in public housing facilities or condominium associations? Like how do we do that? Plus you've got all the apartments now, but so how do we get this into every neighborhood?
Yeah, I think there's various ways we can do it depending on, community buy-in, whether it's the building managers who find residents that, are passionate about it. Maybe they're willing to, pay for a drop-off location to be designated at their apartment complex. Or we could maybe even look into different ways that make it a little bit easier for people to access the drop-off locations. I know like the transfer station right now, some residents, if they don't have a car, getting a disposal pass and things like that can be a little bit tricky. So in the future, I'll look into maybe adapting that slightly to make sure that it kind of reduces any barriers for people who may not have a car or may not use the transfer station enough to kind of get the disposal pass and kind of go to City Hall and then bring it with them each time to the transfer station. And I think education is a big piece of it as well.
Yeah. And to that point, before I forget, because it left my head while you were talking, I think, all the programming that's happening in Ryan Park, and I think it will take a little bit more education. I think those were probably opportunities too, to come out and maybe show, give a sample or just start that process to have said, we're coming out here every 2 weeks, you can do this, or just those were opportunities to educate the community. But I think you're right. And I think we just need to be creative about it.
Yeah.
And
So
start.
throughout the summer, we had a lot of public health reach at the beaches during the concert days. Example was there pretty much every Wednesday with flyers selling composting bins and all that. I just want to address the housing and also the apartments. I just want to remind everyone that the city of Norwalk do not do commercial or apartments like condominiums with more than 4 units for pickup. So that's why for us it's very hard to get in that niche of the market, because we do not provide any service to them. What we are doing is, as Mr. Zabo said, we are just trying to add more of those drop-off locations for composting so people have access to it. Definitely South Norwalk is in our radar, but we cannot yet open a fourth site until our third site is not doing extremely well. So we need to make sure that the numbers are rising, that we can see that the people is committing to do all the food composting, and definitely we're gonna be expanding the program.
Yeah, I think it's key. You have to start somewhere, and if we start small, but it's about education and just getting there, but having that opportunity, I think, is where we start. So appreciate the work. A lot of work.
I'm thinking, Darlene, farmers market season is coming to a close, right? But with those markets at Ryan Park, just thinking ahead to next spring, just getting the literature and the information.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. That place, yeah, right there. Right.
Very, very beginning. And I don't know if this is even, I'm just going to throw this out there as just a random, not even a random possibility, but maybe, that's every other weekend, right? So maybe after a period of time, maybe you could have a bin or two for compost at that particular event, not use it just for education, but have a bin there, you know? So.
That's a good idea. We'll look into it.
So I think this is a start to it. So I think that's great. Appreciate it.
And you have a question, Darlene, before we move on to the upcoming project status? Go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, so I have a question. A couple of weeks ago, a neighbor of mine was charging an electric vehicle through a cord ran through the kitchen window in a condo townhouse situation. And so I'm just curious, is that how do folks who live in, that's not allowable, correct? Did I just make your evening, Vanessa?
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
I think that's a Bill Ireland question.
Blocking the right of way. So, so that's when it's like that, Ms. Young, if you can just call, let me know what was the address, and then no one is allowed to put anything on the right of way without a permit. So
city permit, okay.
So he cannot run any extension cord and let's say block the sidewalk. That is not allowed.
And so for anyone who has an electric vehicle that lives in a multi-family or unit dwelling, that's not acceptable, I'm assuming, but I will talk to Bill Ireland. But
that will be beyond our jurisdiction as public works.
I'll talk to Bill Ireland.
If he can charge his car on the street, I cannot answer if he can charge from the residential unit. Under the public works, we will not allow anything on the right of way without a permit. So he has to come and ask for a permit to at least put extension cord over the sidewalk. And then he'll have to follow some of our requirements. If he can meet, then probably we can or cannot issue a permit.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for bringing that up, Darlene. I mean, then I see that as a potential problem growing and growing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
As long as we're on that subject, I wanted to bring something up. We're out banging on doors today, and over by right off Flax Hill Road, and I forget the name of the street. There's a brook that runs through the road and goes for about a mile, following Flax Hill down south. And they're complaining that the city does come periodically and cut back some of the weeds on the side of this this brook, but one of the owners usually just lets it overgrow, and then as it gets overgrown, and then with the water that comes down, like in the rains that we had, it floods on the other side of the street. Is there something that we can do about that, or who should we be talking to about things like that?
It depends. So depending, conservation actually has a jurisdiction over the brook, because depending if it is wetlands, nothing can be cut. So.
Well, no,
first-
it's not on, it's not, I don't think it's necessarily wetlands. There's a brook that, yeah, I understand what you're
Well,
saying.
it is considered wetlands if there is a brook as well, so conservation has restriction. They will have to, allow, sometimes if it is in private property, the homeowner, if it is allowed by conservation, he has to maintain that. Now, if there's something that is blocking the water to flow, Public Works with conservation will send a letter to them and ask them to. So, if you forward me, again, what is the request, what is the issue, with some pictures, we'll. see
Okay,
what-
yeah, we took some pictures today, so I'll send them over.
Okay, with an address, please.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so let's move on to current and upcoming project status. We could just have a quick update. We've been here a while, Jim. Oh, Darlene, do you have something before we move on?
No, I'm so sorry. No.
Okay. All right, go ahead, Jim.
All right, so basically, ongoing project right now, Dreamy Hollow storm drainage improvements. That one is an ongoing project. It's moving quite well. They haven't encountered a lot of serious problems, but it is a slow moving project with all the amount of excavation that they do and structural installation. So we're very hopeful once that gets in, resolve a lot of drainage issues. The permanent roadway repair, service restoration, 2023-2. That I believe it is. That's an ongoing project as well. We do that do it accordingly, and that's just something that will be continuous. The PM 2023-4 paving at various locations. That's just starting up, and the contractor is actually scheduled to start paving next week. And he has a few roads already that he's scheduled to do starting next week: Old Rock Lane, Old Rock Court, Princess Pine Road, Our Lives Road, Reynolds Street, Moore Place, and Pleasant Street. That is tentatively what they're going to shoot for starting next week. And they will continue that as they will go as far as they can as long as weather is permitting. That's how that works. The pavement management program, again, is just continuous, and that's nothing for a particular construction. It's just how we evaluate our roadways. The RD 2022-1 curbs sidewalks at various locations, that's pretty much complete except for some punch list items. They go various for smaller roads. The RD 2022-2 curbs and sidewalks for Senga and Morton, that's also continuous at the moment. They're making very good progress. There's just slow things as they go along. They're encountering rock as they go along, fill things, but the contractor's doing a very good job, and we're hopeful that that will be complete in the next few weeks. Then the RD 2023-1 curbs and sidewalks for Spring Hill Avenue. Well, we discussed that before. We'd like to continue with that. And actually address this and any other punch list items there. Then the DRG 2020-1 on-call drainage. That particular contract is currently set to end around mid-November, but we still that's another one that's just basically continuous. We're constantly getting new drainage situations, so we try to evaluate and assess whatever we can do on an ongoing process. But of course, another one's going to be hopefully we'll have another contract in place soon after that. Then the RNP 2022-3 Freeze Park rehabilitation. So that is also ongoing, but very well to do at this point. We're hoping just a couple more weeks for that, but they're going through various punch list items. A lot of stuff has been done for this accordingly. The RA 2022-2, which is the 467 West Avenue Utility Infrastructure Upgrade. That is also something it's slow moving, but it is ongoing. So the contractor is working pretty extensively on this, but because of various reasons, the layouts gets changed for infrastructure underground for this. So that's what they're encountering, and they price us accordingly. So we'll get an updated schedule as we start to dig a little bit more deeper into that. Then DRG 2023-1 Chatham Drive and Costa Road storm drainage. That's also ongoing. They've had some difficulties, but the contractor is doing very well with this. As best to be, we're coordinating a lot of situations with the SNU, with a lot of their existing water mains that are in the area. They're just peppered all over the place, so we want to just make sure that we're careful and not interrupt the service as much as possible. But we're just working around that as we go along.
Jim,
And
can I just,
Sure.
we were up there in that area the other day too, and there's somebody that's got a leak in his, it looks like It's just gushing water out of his driveway. And he says he's called SNU several times. Nobody wants to do anything.
But when was this? When was
This
this?
was day before yesterday.
Okay, all right, there was, we did have a rupture, there the other day because, well, various reasons, the ground became unstable for a couple of things, but,
This was a different one. This is just on a drive.
yeah, but on the driveway itself, I don't know if it was
Yeah.
related to the project. You know who we
Yeah.
spoke
Oh,
to?
it's in the road in front of the driveway.
To the road in front of the driveway, okay.
So we usually, if you send us the address, we can follow up.
Yes.
Nobody is usually is the water company that has to take care of the water.
I know, I understand what you're saying, and we called, the resident called SNEW several times, and he doesn't get any response. The water just.
You have to know the
gone on for about a
address?
week, 2 weeks. Pardon?
You know the address offhand?
No, I can get it for you tomorrow.
Okay, yeah, get that for us. We can see if it was in the vicinity of the rupture that
We'll
we
let
had
them
along the main, yes.
We
We'll
can
let
let
them
you
know.
know. But I understand that they were fixing some type of a water break today, so maybe it was that one.
My understanding, everything has been restored. If I'm mistaken, we can find out. We'll let you know about that.
Yeah, I'll send you the address.
Okay, so thank you. All right, and then the SDR 2023-1 emergency Wall Street retaining wall sidewalk abatement. Much of that is has been done, but they are working on the actual wall itself, which is the most complex part of it. And they're trying to coordinate with that with some particular sidewalk work. There was actually another rupture in there as well, so it's hard to deal with these old utilities sometimes. But the it's actually the same contractor, so he's doing quite well handling both these situations. But we're coordinating that with that's actually First District over there. So First District Water. So we have coordinated that, and they've done repairs. So that's just moving on accordingly. So we're hoping with that for just a couple more weeks, barring any other punch list items. But we'll hopefully we don't have to have too much more of that. We'll see. And then the BR 2022-1 Bonnie Brook Road and Cannon Street. We just discussed that before. The structural work has basically been complete, but now we're going for the additional areas of the beautification areas and other safety issues of guide rail being installed and final paving in front of both areas. So that's pretty much the major things for the construction aspects.
Thanks, Jim. I have a couple things before we close up here. One, I was door knocking over in the Ponus area and got some feedback from two separate residents who, have experienced the flooding, and both very grateful for the work that DPW has done to anything that you've been doing to, one resident had received some alleviation, the other, is just very happy with the response. So I just wanted to share that with you, because most of the time when we're door knocking, we're hearing, the complaints, right, about the flooding, and which we were really a lot in that area 2 years ago. So it's a much different message that we're getting. So I wanted to highlight that and thank you for the work that you're
We
doing.
appreciate the feedback.
To,
Well,
give-
I'd like to add to that too. We were in the Brookside area yesterday and today, and there were probably 2 or 3 instances where I asked specifically, I said, what do you like about the city? What's new? What do you think is good about the city? And 3 different residents told us that the response time that you guys had was great, that they'd call you one day and somebody'd be out there the next day and took care of everything. It made me really feel excited about this. I was really proud to say that. Yeah, it's all because of us. So it's all because of you. Really.
I appreciate and again, all the time that particularly for the operations guys, that I'll tell you this past weekend they work a lot. I didn't let them go home early on Friday. They report back at 4 a.m. on Saturday. I know that
they were out there Sunday too. You had them.
But there was some cleanup to do. Yes, they worked. We had the half marathon on Sunday. They worked, and everything went very smooth this weekend. So, thank you for letting us know. I usually compliment them when we receive also this good news. And we have been working very, very hard to try to make the city better for everyone. So thank you. But
It
we will
really
do
does, it really
others.
does show.
It does.
shows.
Absolutely. And then the
Absolutely.
last thing, before we go, the November meeting will be canceled. November meeting of the Public Works Committee, that is election day and night. And Vanessa, thank you for working very hard to get everything you could taken care of in this meeting, so that we can go ahead and cancel that November meeting. Mr. Meek.
Oh, I know it goes under TMP, but just thanks for whatever you did, getting Bain Street striped. It looks like if it hasn't happened yet, I saw the outlines were out there on the road. Thank you.
Supposedly tonight,
tonight.
that's what we heard, you know, they said that final striping may come tonight. We'll see.
It's a good night for it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fingers crossed.
Nice,
So-
nice and dry for once.
And by the way,
Also,
any,
for the record, it seems that, you know, there were a couple of times that safety marking was scheduled to come to stripe that area and it rained. So, and after it rains, you know, you get pushed out because of course they already have the commitment on the next day in a different city. So it seems that 2 or 3 times when that road was supposed to be scheduled, it rained. So I just want to share that because that was some of the information that I also got from TMP. But as Jim mentioned, supposedly they may be in that area tonight. So let's keep our fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Yeah, I
Yeah.
talked to Jim
There's
today.
a lot of pressure on safety marking. I agree, it has been a long time and we're trying our best to get them there.
and if
Thanks,
anybody wants to know what those big green boxes are, you can ask Jim or I, and we'll explain it to you.
I don't think we have them on Bain Street.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Last thing, Touch a Truck is a wonderful event. Thank you for continuing that.
No, thank you. I hope to see you there.
Yeah, we usually, my boy can't stay off the truck, so.
And we're gonna have
What's that?
a new toy that we're gonna show there. We're gonna unveil. So that's why I cannot say yet.
Awesome.
So lastly, it sounds like, Barbara, this is our last meeting as.
Oh, gosh. I
Is
guess,
this it?
well, unless we have to have a special meeting for some reason.
Unless
but,
there's a
yeah,
special
it
meeting.
Probably is.
I think this is our
Probably.
last official meeting as council members together.
Yeah,
And so I want to thank you for your leadership on this committee.
thanks, Darlene.
Um,
Thank you.
I just appreciate you and Vanessa. I am just honored to have been on this committee and to have seen you move up to this position, doing a fantastic job. And so if I don't make it back on, kudos, but I'll see you in the hallways or something like that. And just thank you to everybody. Just thank you.
Yeah.
And this was a really good
Thanks,
meeting.
Darlene. It was. We got a lot done tonight. Very good meeting. And wishing everyone here is running again. So wishing everyone good luck. And we'll see how.
Thank you, Monique.
Hey,
Thanks,
thanks,
Barbara.
Monique. Okay, motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved. Thank
All in
you.
favor? Great. Okay,
Bye-bye.
thanks, everyone. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.